Well, hello viewers, I do hope you're all well, I really do. Well, hopefully as long as this goes well, and it may not, but I'm going to do my best. This is the first in hopefully a long line of interviews, Q&As, whatever you may want to call them, with people like yourselves, people that actually listen to the channel or watch the channel from time to time. At this stage we'll call it the viewers section, and we'll create a playlist, so further down the line if anybody likes the series and wants to go into the back catalogues and look at and listen to various people, they'll easily find them, they'll easily be able to do that. You know what I do now, folks. There's no editing, there's no fancy graphics, there's no nothing. So we're just going to do it as it is. The person I've got to speak to you is on the line now. We'll bring him in a moment. But I should give you a little bit of background to it first. This is an idea I had about a week ago. I've run it past a few people on the channel. They like the idea of it. A few people on the channel have suggested an interest. They might like to do it themselves, but like anything else, it's awful and it's difficult being the first. It isn't going to be your normal face-to-face in that you're only going to see me, unfortunately, and I do apologise for that. But I'm too thick, as you know, to set up the Zooms and set up this and set up that. If I do it, it'll be a train crash. So it's going to be me talking or listening in the main for a change. I will have the odd question as from time to time, and the person or persons that's on the other end of the line are going to answer it the best they can. Nothing's really going to be off limits. I don't re-record. I'm not going to stop a video and start it again. I'm not going to do that at all. But I'm going to ask the person or persons on the other end of the line a question, and if it's something they don't want to answer, they're just going to say, look, I'd rather not answer that. And that's fine. You at home can make of that what you will, but at the end of the day, I'm not trying to trip anybody up that's on the line with me or upset anyone in any way, shape or form. But I want to ask the questions that if I was watching somebody else do this Q&A, I'd want asking, so that's what I'm going to do. Now, before I go any further, before I introduce the person, as I say, he was waiting now, let me tell you how we're doing this. It was going to be me on here, as you can see, and this person or persons on the other end of a line, and on the other end of the line I was going to tape something on a dictaphone, play it back to yourselves, because I could get it right close to the speaker that I work from. It'd make everybody louder and more audible. Unfortunately, I've looked all over the house and I've thrown the house upside down and I can't find my dictaphone. The other reason of using a dictaphone was I could pause things from time to time and intersperse and bring comments in. Unfortunately, for this first one, I'm not going to be able to do that. So this is just done on a mobile phone with a speaker, so hopefully you'll be able to hear this person in one moment. Right, introduction almost over, but let me just say before I go any further, there'll be many people we have on here over the weeks and months. There'll be some that are comfortable doing this because maybe they've got a presence already, maybe they're public speakers, maybe in the careers that they've got or they've had, they'll be used to speaking to others. There might be people off the internet that have things like myself, like YouTubes and so on and so forth. This person might have. You'll find out more about this person in a moment. But what I would suggest, folks, if you like what you hear, give it a go yourselves, because this is open to everybody that watches and listens to my channel. It really, really is. As I say, once this first person does what they do, then the ice is broken, it becomes easier. This will be interview number 1, or Q&A number 1, I don't really know what to call it. I've already got number 2 lined up. They're both people that have approached me, which is great, so it makes things easier. But they are people that have got a bit more of a presence about them. They're not shy, and they've done things of this ilk before. They have spoken to others, so it does make it easier. But bear in mind, because you're only on the end of a phone, nobody's going to know who you are if you're somebody that doesn't want anybody to know. So you can tell me any story about anything. And the last thing I will say, this person, what we're going to discuss now, might not be for everybody. You'll get that from time to time in this series. Some things you'll think, oh, that's not for me, I've no interest in that subject. But you may surprise yourself. I would suggest you give it 5 or 10 minutes, give it a go. If you don't like what you hear, then fine. Go to one that you do. But anyway, we'll start with this gentleman. It's a gentleman, by the way. And let me just put something up on my screen. I got an email off this gentleman about a week ago now. A lovely fella. Don't know him at all. I've spoken to him once on the phone before today. I spoke on Saturday with him, to be totally transparent. Really nice guy. One of my subscribers, followers, viewers mentioned this gentleman's name to me 2 weeks ago. I didn't really know who it was. I didn't do any digging as such, but I looked into one thing that they'd done and was reasonably impressed. And somebody else that follows the channel that has a lot of interaction with me that I particularly like was saying that this person's really good at what they do and a really nice person. And to that end, as I say, I got an email off this person. It was bolt out of the blue, and he says, "Hi Dave, how about interviewing me? I've operated a paid for tipping service for 16 years since retiring, but I also give free tips on YouTube. The reason I'm not recruiting to be a paid for service is explained in my Saturday video of the 27th of January. The gentleman's name is Peter Fillingham, and without any further ado, I'll introduce Peter to you. Peter, you've got the floor, sir."
Hello there, David. Nice to speak to you. Feel free to fire any questions that you like.
Right, okay. Right, well, before I fire any, Peter, I know I've said a lot. This is the first one before we get into it. But I am going to disclose what I said to you over the weekend to everybody here. And that was, and it's nothing bad, but that was, I said, Peter, I mean, after you put yourself forward to be first, which I was over the moon with, because somebody's got to start it somewhere, and I was really pleased that you contacted me. I had a thought, and I thought to myself, over the last 4 or 5 weeks since I've started this crusade, because I'm on a crusade, viewers, some of you will know about it. If you like horse racing, you'll know. If you're not into horse racing, you won't know about this crusade. But I've started doing something with online tipsters, specifically on YouTube, those that I think aren't very transparent and aren't very fair, and are trying, in many respects, or are actually succeeding in, I believe, picking people's pockets. I don't think Peter's one of them, by the way, and as we go on, I will explain why. So I've got no truck with Peter whatsoever, or certainly not at this stage, and hopefully never will have. But I said to Peter, after we had a chat on Saturday, I said, my only concern, Peter, is my first one's going to be with yourself. Some people on my channel follow horse racing and like it, many don't. And I don't want my viewers, I can take these bins off now, I don't want my viewers who've watched me for the 8 or 9 months I've been going thinking, oh my God, Britain's grumpiest old git is developing into an horse racing channel. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I said that to Peter, and I thought, God, I fancy me saying that to the gentleman when he's been good enough to put his name forward and have a go at it. I meant nothing by that, viewers. I meant nothing by that, Peter. But I'm thinking to myself, well, there'll only be a certain amount of people that will be interested in what Peter does, because many won't have an handle on horse racing, don't care about it. Which is why in the preamble at the start I said, if you watch my channel, viewers, whoever you may be, whether you like horse racing or not, give each video 5 or 10 minutes a go first, because you might surprise yourself. And the way we're going to do things here is we're going to dig down into people's and the psyche and where they've come from, what they've done, because it's all about, with me, life stories, how they've got to where they are now. Right, that's even more talking. Now we'll get into it. Now it's going to be all you, Peter. Right, first question. You're a little bit older than me, Peter. I'm in my early 60s, you're in your early 70s. You say that you've had a tipping service for like 15 or 16 years. I'm also going to mention in a moment a conversation we had and why you are and aren't taking on new subscribers soon, and what the reasons are and aren't behind it. We'll get into that a bit later. But where did your interest in horse racing start, Peter?
Well, I think when I was about 12 years old, my dad was a bit of a horse racing fanatic, and here in Folkestone we had a racetrack, Folkestone Race Courses, which unfortunately is now closed. But so my dad used to take me from the age of 12, and each time we went, he'd explain a little bit about how racing worked. We'd always get a racing post, and he'd show me the relevant pages and show me the form, what the numbers meant. I didn't force it down my throat, but as the weeks went, well, not so much weeks, as it wasn't on every week, but shall we say as the visits went by, and each time he'd tell me a little bit more, so that after, I don't know, a few years, I kind of knew a fair amount about racing. But it was the interest that he piqued, and I think ever since then, I've been interested in horse racing.
Nothing wrong with that at all, Peter. In fact, to be honest with you, we probably started about the same age, although I started probably a little bit later than you. The first horses I remember the names, but I can't remember what they did and what they won. But I remember certain names from years and years ago in my lifetime. But my interest, I think, was from my granddad. My granddad was a big horse racing fan. I hate to say this, but my granddad was probably a little bit lazy. He retired from work very, very early. Was happy to have his wife working all the hours God sent, and he'd sit at home watching racing or going down the pub having a drink. I liked him. I don't think he was the greatest gentleman in the world, but he was good with me. And I liked horse racing through him. And I started, like you, about 10, 11 or 12. You know, my first my first big horse, the first probably 70, 71, that's when I really got into it. But I'd only been like 9 and 10 then. So like I was probably even younger than you, but round about the same age, you know. And it's funny, you get it from your peers, don't you? But I'm like you, I've had the bug all my life. Have you always been flat racing, or have you been jumps? Or were you both? Initially, how did you start off?
Everything really. Yeah, it was only a side interest, I suppose, until I retired. I took early retirement. First year or so, I was quite content to take the dogs for a walk and mess around in general, but kind of got bored after that, and I thought, let's get stuck into this horse racing. I've always been interested in, but never really never devoted time to it. And yeah, so I did. I started picking horses for myself, really. I'd start the afternoon before racing, go through the cards, and only with a few quid, I'd back the horses the following day. And I did okay, really. And then friends started saying, "Oh, what are you backing today?" Because she sort of mentioned that, I'd had a 5-1 winner on that, and whatever. And after I don't know how long, really, a few months, and after more and more people were asking me what I was backing, I thought, well, why don't I start a tipping service? So obviously people are interested in this, and that's really where it all started. I formed a limited company in, let's have a look now, 2007, to handle the clients, because I always wanted to do things right. There's no point in having trouble with tax authorities or anything like that. So I started a limited company. And anybody can look me up now. All you've got to do is Google Equestrian Risk Management Syndicate Limited. There I am, as a director. And anyway, long story short, I decided to go onto YouTube. 2.5 months ago, something like that. I couldn't take any more people. I mean, bearing in mind it's been running since 2007, I couldn't take any more people into the Equestrian Risk Management Syndicate because, over the years the numbers had clicked up, and frankly it was getting near to the VAT threshold, and what I did not want to do was to get into VAT. I mean, I can explain why, but again, long story short, who wants to be a tax collector for the government? And who wants to go a penny over the VAT threshold and then have to pay that for everybody that's in the syndicate? With income tax, you go a penny over the threshold and you pay tax on that penny that's over the threshold. Not with VAT, you don't. So that was that. Anyway, I'm in danger of rambling. Dave.
No, Peter.
Membership, so
no, listen, Peter.
I'll let you get a
Peter,
word in.
I ramble as much as you, so don't worry. But this is what it's all about. It's informal. But I'm glad you've gone through that, because obviously you knew from what I was saying a few minutes ago, that's what I was going to mention. Now, Peter sent me, I've had probably 3, maybe 4 emails of Peter since probably about a week ago. I'd watched one video of his about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, because one of the followers on here, one of the people on there mentioned him. I just watched one video and that's all. And then I've got a young lady that messages me on a regular basis, Mandy, who's a lovely young lady there. Well, I say young, I don't even know her age, I don't know anything about her. I know she lives in Ireland, but only because she mentioned the other day that the power was down in Ireland and so on and so forth when we had one of those storms. And she said she follows Peter from time to time, or looks on his site, and he's really good, and he seems really decent and really honest. And I thought, well, I trust her, so if she's telling me that, I tend to believe it. Anyway, over the weekend, as part of some research, I say over the weekend, I think it was Friday night, I knew I was hoping to do this today. I'd not spoken to Peter on the phone by this time, but I was going to speak to him on Saturday, which I did. The 5-minute phone call became 40 minutes because I talk a lot, as you know, folks, and Peter can talk as well, so we're okay that way. I was looking at his videos and I said to Peter, I looked at a couple of videos last night, probably 9-10 o'clock, and then I thought, no, it wasn't, it was 1:30, 2:15. I listened to the last couple because they're the kind of hours I'm doing at the moment, folks, with what with YouTube work and everything else. But I listened to the video that he said, where he said he wasn't taking other subscribers on. and I'll listen to another couple of bits and pieces. We'll go with the subscribers first, because I asked the question and he's just really explained it all for everybody anyway, but let me get into the nuts and bolts of this. I said to Peter, Peter, you say in that video you're not looking at taking any more on. I said, well, obviously you would take more and everybody would take more on. I said, at the end of the day, if you have 10 more people wanting to join your paid service, you're earning enough 10 more people, you're not going to say no if 10 people come knocking on your door tomorrow, because all it is sending an email to 10 others. Surely that's not nothing difficult. Why would you say? Because he did say in the video that he's got one gentleman who's either dying or just died. He's got one where his wife's got older Peter said he's got dementia, it's getting worse. And he said on the video, shortly some people are going to fall off the service, so we'll replace them. And I just thought that didn't ring true. So I spoke to Peter on it on Saturday, and he's given you the answer there, folks, which is great. And he said, no, Dave, it's genuine. He said, what it is, I do everything legit. He said, I pay all my taxes and so on and so forth. I am sort of semi-retired, this is all I do now. Or retired, this is all I do now. He said, but I've set up a company. He said, and if I bring too many people on board, we what I charge, and I don't rob anybody, and we never went into that because that's down to Peter. He said, I'll be over the VAT limit, I don't want to do that. And I get where he's coming from. You know, what's that now, a fifth of your money? Well, so he's losing a fifth of his customers if he's, in actual fact. So he's obviously not going to do that, and rightly so. He's just explained it. He's explained the name of his company. It's there on Company's House. If anybody wants to check him out, they can do. But I like his openness. He's been open there just. He's open on his videos. He offers between about 2 to 4 or 5 tips a day, because I watched about 4 videos. He doesn't go over the top when he's had a win. I think he held something up the other day to say he'd won about 300 quid with what he'd put on, but he doesn't go on and on and on about it. He says at the start of the video, maybe not a great day yesterday, folks, but let's do better today. He's running a profit and loss. Now, I don't know. We'll go into that in a moment. I think he said it's done monthly rather than daily. I may be wrong. But he's trying to be transparent. He's seen our site because he knows what we're doing. We did with the first fellow where he wasn't doing a profit and loss and now is. And with the second fellow that's now fell off the radar, but hopefully he'll be back on there again. I didn't know, Peter, you've only been on the YouTube for a month and a half. 2.5 months. I didn't realise that. But obviously, you've started and you're doing reasonably well on there. I mean, I've seen his videos and I like them. I like it because he gets straight to the point. It's not like, well, I've got 2 bets for you today, but first, join this and give me this and do 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 this. And in a minute, I'm going to get to the tip. And right at the end of 3 or 4 minutes, he gets to a tip. He tells you the tip straight away. He speaks in a pretty authoritative and loud voice so you can hear him. He normally says each tip twice. And if there's a difficult spelling, he'll spell it out for you. I think that's great, Peter. I think the way you do it is really, really good. And he does say we're not going to win every day, but we're going to do our best. And I just like his openness. I think he's really good that way. And to be honest with you, Peter, regardless of what more we're saying this and how we go, I hope you do well because I like what you're doing. And I think you're coming from a decent place. And I don't think your aim is to rob anybody. And the fact that he might have a couple of places coming up soon, but people have been with him for 14, 15, 16 years, must say a lot about him, because I don't think you'd have that kind of following, people that are paying you for many a year, if you were constantly giving rubbish. So that's where we came to about the subscribers and people jumping on board to pay him actual money. Right, where can we go from there? Let me think. On your paid service, Peter, just as a matter of interest, it'll obviously vary from day to day, but how many tips on your paid service you normally tend to give per day?
Probably about 4 on average.
Right. And I think you said, I know on your free service, what you give, you tend to just give horses, you don't go into multiples, and you tend not even to go into each way. You just give horses to win regardless of what the price is. Is that correct?
That's absolutely right, yeah. I think it's just too complicated, really, having doubles and trebles and this thing and that thing. I just like to keep it simple. I mean, people do want to do doubles and trebles, and by the way, I don't recommend it. The reason I don't recommend it is because 19 times out of 20, you are going to get one losers. I mean, I've got to be honest, I can't. If I give an average of 4 horses a day, I cannot remember the last time when they all won. It just doesn't happen.
Yes, of course.
So I just feel it's pointless to encourage people to lose money,
Yeah.
We try to win it, not lose it.
In fact, I would suggest, Peter, even if you've had one day where they all won, I would be doing multiples of yours every single day, because there's not many people can get 4 winners at the prices you give most days, I noticed there was a video I watched the other day. I think it might have been come out on Friday or Saturday of this week, and I think you gave 3 horses if memory serves, and I think there was something like, I think 2 drifted. I think it was only the last couple of days. I think one was about 5 to 1, one was about 7s, and one was about 8s, and one went to 11s, and one went to about 9s. And I'm thinking, well, at them prices, you're not going to get 3 or 4 winners. But the great thing is, if you only gave 3 out 2 days on the bounce and just one of them won, you're either covering yourself or in front after just 2 days. So that is the one good thing about the prices you're offering. They're not always framing. They're not always, you're giving reasonably good prices. Not always, but on a regular basis. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the thing is, before people jump in bed with you and look to give you the money, if you did take anybody else on board, they can have 3 or 4 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks of listening tips on a daily basis and monitoring how you're doing, and obviously that gives people a good insight into what you're all about and what you do. And again, you do say that your better tips, and I don't think you're pulling the wool over anyone's eyes, you think you the ones that you fancy the most are on your paid services, they would be. Doesn't mean to say the ones on your free service are crap. You're not just sticking a pin in anywhere. You do fancy them, but not as hard as some of the ones that you fancy that you paid for, which obviously I get that, because at the end of the day, if people are paying you money and you're constantly losing and you're losing your 3 or 4 tips day in, day out for weeks on end, you're going to lose those people. So obviously you're going to...
Well, exactly. I couldn't agree more. Just to pick up on what you were saying about good prices, though, the reason I prefer the better priced horses is because there's more chance of getting value in them. You're always looking for odds that are better than the actual chance of the horse winning. But if it's a 5 to 1 shot, it might, in reality, be a 3 to 1 shot. If it's a favourite at evens, well, it might be 5 to 4. So the value is thin on favourites, but it's thicker on the higher priced horses.
Yeah, I think, Peter, as well now, I know more than I've ever known just with YouTube on value of horses, because we mentioned a couple of names over the weekend. We mentioned Flat Cap Callum, we mentioned Mickey D, who you was very impressed with, and I'm not saying that because he's got a few followers on it, but you said you'd been impressed with what you'd seen. We mentioned the Watchman, but it was Flat Cap Callum I first started to watch, and a lot call him, and I don't know why, because he gives a completely free service, he's completely transparent, and everything is recorded, the stats are there for everyone to see, the best stats you'll ever see. But what I like about him, he always says, you're going to have many, many, many more winners than losers than winners, especially with the prices I give. But I'm after value all the time. I'm after picking a horse when I think the bookies have got it wrong. And he'll even tell you many days, this one will come in tomorrow a lot. And often he's right. But the thing is, if you were betting 2 to 1 prices every single day, even if they were second favourites, there's every chance, if the price goes a certain way, it's probably going to go, because they're near on favourite anyway, it's going to go down rather than out. But I would suggest if you're betting a 6 or 7 to 1, it could go either way. You might be right, it might be high in price, but if 6 or 7 to 1 is the wrong price and they bet it into 3s, if people are getting on at 3s, they're still getting a reasonable price. If you're giving people horses at 2s and they get bet in, they're probably going to be 4 to 5s, 5 to 6s, which isn't a great price. So the fact that you're trying to sort of get round about the 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1 mark, I'm not saying you do it all the time, but in a couple of videos I've seen, there's a good smattering of them on there. I think that gives you the chance that if they do go one way, they may go out, which means people are going to get even better value. But if they come in, they still might be left with 3 and 4 to 1 shots, and you don't need many 3 and 4 to 1 shots to make a week pay for itself, I don't suppose.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I did forget to mention, though, why I'm doing the YouTube channel when I'm running a paid service. Well, yeah, as you pointed out a minute ago, the bets are the secondary ones. In other words, they're not the ones that I'm giving to my paid-for people. But my punters are probably aged like 60 onwards. I mean, I've never done a survey to find out exactly, but having spoken to quite a few of them on the phone and the sorts of things they said, and I would imagine it's around about 60 plus. Well, of course, as you also said, in the last 2 months, 3 of them died, and one's wife phoned me, said the dementia was on its way, and I know that one's retiring abroad, and so it goes on. People get ill, going to hospital, So my numbers are dwindling slowly but surely. And so I started the YouTube channel because come, I don't know, maybe midsummer, maybe this time next year, my numbers will have got down to a level whereby I could say, well, if anybody wants to come on board, they can. Because I know if I took, I don't know, whatever, 10 people, 50, I just don't know how many are going to go by the wayside. But if I took more people on, and I wouldn't be in danger of going over that threshold, but can't do it now. So I thought, well, if I start a YouTube channel, in a way it's insurance. People get to know me. They think, hopefully, well, if his secondary bets are good, then his pay-for bets must be great. And so, yeah, we'll, as regular viewers will know, I don't mention that I've got a paid service because I don't want people to say, oh, can I join? I mentioned it in passing on the About section of the YouTube channel. I mentioned it in passing on the website. But, we'll tick along. I mean, at the moment on the YouTube channel, I'm doing a test between the leftover bets on the big prices and some favourites, which is a kind of a spin-off. I won't go into all the ins and outs of how I've isolated them, but I thought it'd be an interesting test to see which do best. I mean, I'm absolutely sure that it's going to be the big priced horses that are going to do best, but I'm going to run it until the end of this month, the end of February, and we shall see at the end just by how much the big price ones have beaten the favourites. Or maybe I'll be wrong, maybe the favourites will do brilliantly, but I kind of wouldn't have thought so because of that thin value within the favourites.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I heard you mention that a couple of times on a couple of videos, and you say that the running totals are underneath there, the favourites and stuff, and I've not even looked into that, but I know you're going to look at it end of the month and you're going to announce how things look, so I'll look out for that video myself. But
right.
But as I say, no, there's nothing I didn't like about the channel. I've seen some channels on YouTube, as I say, for me, and I don't want on YouTube to comment on these, Peter. This is me and me alone. I think there was a chap who I've left alone now, Mr. Maurice. There was also Peter Sandrovich and Carl Betts, and then since then the Watchman. And I think they're all doing things the wrong way because there's no transparency at all, and it's all about getting it to join the site. And there's loads of different bets. There's not just a bet or two or 3 or 4 horses a day. There's this bet, there's that bet, there's the other bet. They've got a source in the stables here, source in the stables there. They've got a man who's the best in Ireland. They've got a man who's the best on the all-weather. They've got the special Newcastle fella that tells them all about Newcastle. They've got someone at Lingfield. And I'm thinking, it's just all absolute baloney. Now, I think I did ask you this, Peter, but didn't you say you study, pick horses, give the horses out? It's all you, no middlemen, nobody else. It's just you. I am right there, aren't I? I know I'm right.
You're absolutely right. It is just me. I'll give you a quick overview of what I do. I start the afternoon before, look at the declarations. So I haven't got, 500,000 horses to look at. I eliminate lots of different races. For instance, I'll eliminate maiden races, and for those that aren't in the know, that's races for horses that have never won a race. The problem with maidens is you don't know if the horse hasn't won because he can't win, because he doesn't want to win. I mean, bearing in mind that horses are herd animals, many of them like to stick with the herd as they're running along, don't like to go to the front. So you kind of never know, well, at least I don't. I mean, maybe some tipsters do brilliantly with maidens, I really wouldn't know, but I personally avoid them. I also avoid very low class races, class 6s, because anything can win in those things. But I'll equally avoid very high class races, class 1s, because you can't put a cigarette paper between the form of some of the horses in those class 1s. But also you'll find in class 1s where there's a heck of a lot of prize money to go through, that trainers will cover up the form of a horse before he enters so that there's a damn good price on it, and then their contacts, because they're not allowed to back horses themselves, but their contacts will on their behalf, and in order to keep the horse's form quiet and get a better handicap mark, they'll run previously. They'll run the horses at the wrong distance in races, on the wrong going. If it's a front-running horse, well, they won't let it front run. If it's a hold-up horse, then they'll let it run at the front. They do every damn thing to mix up the form so that when it does enter the Class 1 at, 12 to 1, bloody thing will storm home. So, anyway, so I'll eliminate a lot of races. And after that, I'll allocate points to each element of a race I choose to work on. So I'll be looking, for instance, trade is an obvious place to start. And I shall allocate them points. The better the trainer's performance over a given period, the higher number of points it will get. Same with the jockey. Same with the trainer-jockey combination. And same with the horse. Be looking at ground, distance as well. Everything will translate into points, and then the points I will translate to odds. So essentially I'll be creating my own tissue price. So I've got a list of horses that I'm interested in with the odds I think they should be based on the points that have been allocated to them. At 9:30 the following morning, I look at oddschecker.com.
Yes.
And I look at the real market prices. And I might have priced one up at 5 to 1. Oddschecker, I have it at 7 to 1. I think, very nice, thank you. Those are the sort of horses that I put out.
Right.
So I won't waffle on about the favourites because they may not last. But it's just a spin-off from the higher odds. It's from looking at all of the races, and it's something will catch my eye on favourites. I'm not saying it worked long term. That's why I'm just testing it.
Right.
So
what races?
You get a word in each way.
No, not at all. What races would you normally concentrate on? But are you looking at Class 2, Class 3? Are you looking at big field handicaps? Are you looking at 9, 10 run handicaps? What?
My ideal races are Class 3 and 4.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's potentially where you look. Right. And what kind of field size are you looking at in the Class 3 and 4? Or does it not matter to you? What kind of field size are you looking at? How many runs per? Or does that not matter to you?
Right. No more than 12 and no fewer than 6.
Right. Okay.
Because over 12 it can become a lottery.
Yeah.
Not saying it always is, but it can be. And under 6, you've got if a horse wants to be a hold-up horse, it can become a front runner in a small field. Also, you can get that is the main problem with small fields, and also, of course, your odds suffer because each horse has got a better chance of winning in a small field. So the odds suffer. And again, it's only my personal preference. I'm not saying other tipsters do what I do. Some might love 2-horse races.
Yes,
and some might like. Well, I know that some like 20-horse races. But it's just what I've chosen to do, really.
Well, and that's the best way. It's best. I've seen some of the on the Star Sports, the various. I think Ben Keith does a series there on various punters and so on and so forth, and people from within the racing industry, and many of the professional punters, they do the same. They work with point systems or things of that ilk, but they also have certain types of race that they concentrate on, and that's all they tend to concentrate on. I think I've heard a couple on there that only look at. I think they look at National Hunt from about October through to March, April, and then for most of the rest of the year they don't do as much, or they go on holidays, and they all have their own niches. So that's why I asked what yours was. So that's what you look at, sort of 6 to 12 runners, Class 2, Class 3. Well, that's fine. Look, there's plenty of races of that ilk there for you, isn't there? And there's always probably something to concentrate on most days of most weeks.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have any favourite meetings, or do you prefer flats and jumps, or are you do you like all weather? Have you got any favourites there?
Well, I don't like short sprints, 5 furlong sprints.
Yeah.
Because again, anything can happen. It's a bit of a lottery.
Yes.
But at least with the jumps is falling, but it doesn't happen as often as some people think. They've got a longer way to go, so they can sort themselves out. You haven't got so many traffic problems. But the other good thing about National Hunt, the jumps, is that they're all experienced horses. All jumps horses started off as flat horses.
Yes.
Start off as 2-year-olds on the flat, and then graduate to the jumps. So it's just a clearer picture from a tipster's viewpoint.
Right. Can I ask, going backwards, and this is going backwards a little bit, and then we'll get back into the horse racing. So obviously you've got into the tipping more the last sort of 15 or 16 years.
Yeah.
In your working life, I don't want to know where you worked and what the address, but what kind of background are you? Just as a matter of interest to flesh out you as a person, what kind of line was you in when you worked?
Well, I trained as a graphic designer and became a graphic designer in the first instance in design studios. Then went into advertising agencies as an art director, which is really graphic designer by a different title. But I wanted to become creative director at some point, and I knew that I needed to get writing under my belt. Well, luckily for me, writing, I've always been good at it. So I went from senior art director to junior copywriter at another agency, worked up to senior copywriter, and then got a job as creative director abroad in Bahrain, of all places, at a Pan-Arabian agency, which was owned by one of the British agencies I'd worked for anyway, so they kind of knew me. So yeah, essentially I spent all my life in advertising.
No worries with that. No, that's great.
Fun.
That's great. I just thought I'd ask. And for all from being a young boy with your dad, with your father there, who taught you a little bit about horse racing and got you into it, it's like only the last 15 years you've got even more serious. Throughout your working life, maybe not as much in Bahrain, but throughout your working life, had you followed horse racing closely? Had you been a regular gambler or a weekend gambler, or did you have many years where you were away from horse racing and got back into it more recently?
Yeah, that's right. No, when I was in advertising, I was a weekend gambler. Never used to gamble much either. In fact, it was more the fun of doing the jigsaw than seeing the big picture at the end of it.
Yeah.
So, I'd put a fiver on, probably, typically. Even though I might have worked on a race for a couple of hours, it was a fun, really, of solving, well, to use another analogy, solving crossword.
Yeah.
Some people like to do crosswords. I like to crack horse racing puzzles.
So you've always followed horse racing, that's what I'm saying. You've never had many years away from it. You've followed it in your own way, and it's something that you've always had an interest in then from being a boy to now.
When I was in Bahrain, because in those days, showing my age here, there were computers, but not much of an internet.
Yes.
So, no. That was, only for 3 years looking back on it. So, yeah, I was out of the loop for 3 years. Didn't seem to affect anything, though.
Brilliant. Right, back into today then, with your tipping service. Obviously, it's going reasonably well. You're relatively new to it. The free side, I think. I really hope it works for you. You did say that when we spoke again over the weekend, you mentioned the VAT bit and whatever else, and I said, well, what's the other reason you've approached us here, Peter? And you was honest, and you've sort of said it in when you were talking earlier. You said, well, Dave, it'll give me some exposure. There's people that probably watch your channel that don't know of me. There are people that do, but there's some that don't. I know I've watched a lot of what you're doing on the horse racing, so I know you've got a bit of a following there. It doesn't hurt me to get people to know me. He said, and obviously, as I've just said to you, I can't take people on at the moment, but if I've got, say, 100 people following me, I might get one new client out of those 100 clients. But if I've got 1,000, I might get 10, though it may not work that way. But obviously, the more people help, and obviously, they do. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. I mean, I'm somebody, I've said to people on here, I mean, my channel's growing, and it's growing reasonably fast. I'm happy with what it's done because nobody's ever pushed me. I've never asked anybody a favour from day one, and I really haven't. But I did say to you, when we do this then, Peter, put this video on your channel because people will see it and they'll get to know more about you. It's not a bad thing if the people that that bet with you or watch your channel, get to know more about you, because normally you come on for the 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, you give 3 or 4 horses and you're gone. So this will make you more personal. It'll introduce people to you in a different way. But also I may get the odd subscriber from your channel, because you did say what your age group was. Primarily my age group is older, I think, although I don't know for certain, but I think. Not that I mind anybody of any age on this channel. But you did say, obviously, it's a bit of promotion for yourself, and it is, and I'm happy to give it to you, because, as I say, horse race is something I'm keen on. It's something I love. I've now got this crusade going, as I say, against people that I think are doing people on YouTube. You're not one of those. I think you're doing really well. So to that end, let's say some people do start watching your channel from me, and I hope they do. I hope your numbers go up. And let's say whenever you take people on, let's say some coming directly from me, they may not, but I hope they do for you. I really do. Can I ask, and I'm never going to know this unless at this stage, but obviously you'll have had some people with you for many a month, for many a year. I think you're the kind of gentleman that'll be pretty honest and won't paint a massively false picture. But over the course of, say, the last 15 years, year on year, are you in front for your pay service year on year, every single year? Are you in front most years? What kind of profit are you making on a yearly basis when you make a profit? Are they getting, would you say 10%? If you were doing everything to a level state, let's say everybody put £10 on every single horse that you did, would you suggest they'd be up sort of 10%, 15%, 5%? What would you suggest?
Well, I'll try and answer that question in order. Over the years that the company's been going, since 2007, we, in the first 2 years, well, people might as well have missed them, to be honest with you. They didn't lose much, didn't make much, kind of broke even in the first couple of years, but then it's a different kettle of fish picking horses for yourself and picking horses for the public, because doing it for yourself, you can choose when you're going to put your... Well, it's a long... I'll tell you what, I could ramble on for ages, so I won't. I'll just cut it short. So in the last couple of years, in the first 2 years rather, wasn't really worth joining me up. In the third year, made a profit. Fourth year, better profit. And fifth year onwards, we made a profit every single year. Now, I'm not saying we made a profit every single month. What tends to happen, and still does now, is that either 1 or 2 months of the year will make a slight loss. It might only be 150, 200 quid. The rest of the months will make... this is all to £40 stakes. I calculate I'm not saying that my members put on, some put on less than 40 quid a horse, some put on more than 40 quid a horse, but I calculate to 40 quid stakes for the simple reason that that's my own... Well, for 2 reasons. A, that's my own stake. B, it's nice and easy to calculate the profit from a 40 quid stake or from a £4 stake or from a 4-point stake, because that's just the way that the fraction odds work. Either 1 or 2 losing months a year, unfortunately, but not a lot of loss. The rest of the months, I'd say a profit of between 500 and 700 quid for the month. Our best month's probably been, I think there's 1,020 quid, just over 1,000 quid in 1 month, but it usually chugs along between 500 and 700 quid per month.
So that's
that answers your question. I might have missed something.
No. That's based on, say you give 3 to 4 horses per day, that's based on people having £40 per horse or per day, per horse.
Precisely. No, 40 quid a horse, that's right.
Right, okay, but obviously they can do that at 10th, that they can do 4 quid, 10 quid, whichever. Right. So
I'll tell you what I will do though. I'll just quickly interrupt myself and say that when people join the syndicate, the pay-for syndicate, they are advised, not asked, but advised to use 2% of whatever their betting bank is. Now, I suggest to them that they, instead of going for the full thing of £2,000, 2,000 quid as a betting bank, I suggest that they go for £500. Use 2% of that 500 quid on day 1 for the horses. On day 2, look at where the betting bank is. I mean, because on day one it might have been a losing day, it might have been a winning day.
Yeah.
But whether the bank's a bit higher than 500 or a bit lower than 500, put 2% of that onto that second day's horses. Then on day 3, again, look at the betting bank balance. Use 2% of that. It might be 2% of a higher amount, 2% of a lower amount, wherever the betting bank stands. And don't take any money out. Just keep it where it is until the bank gets up to 2,000 quid. And from there on in, at the end of each month, take out any monies over 2,000 quid.
Yeah.
So that they start with each month at a betting bank of 2,000 using 2% on what I call a daily variable basis. So it's 2% of whatever it is. On losing runs, you're reducing your stakes in real terms.
Yes, yeah.
On winning runs, you're increasing your stake in real terms. It's just a psychological safety. You can't. I was going to say you can't lose your betting bank. You can end up betting in pennies if you. But luckily we don't have losing runs, anything like that bad. So, it's just a psychological trick, if you like, to keep people. Well, I'm going to say to keep people happy, not for me to keep them happy, to keep themselves happy, and so that they're quite assured that there's just not going to. I mean, losing runs are probably certainly 8 or 9. I've known it to be 18. So it's a bit of a cow. If you're betting 40 quid a horse,
is that 18 horses,
18
Peter? Or 18 horses or 18 days?
But if you're doing it on reducing stakes each day, it's not so bad. But having said that, when we have winning runs, they can just skyrocket the bank. It's nothing to have, 5 days on the bounce. I'm not saying every single horse on each of the 5 days is going to win, because it does not, as I covered early in the conversation. But 5 winning days, not a problem. And that'll put your bank straight, plus put you in front. So, again, I'm in danger of waffling. So
No. When you say 18, did you mean 18 horses or 18 days?
Days.
Right,
No, horses.
Right. So that's probably about 4/5 days, isn't it?
When you're betting, an average of 7 to 1, it's not at all unusual.
Yeah. But that's only really 4 or 5 days, because giving 3...
If you take the toss of a coin...
Yeah.
If you ask let's say red and black in a casino. If you ask a croupier, they're going to tell you that it's very easy to see 8 reds in a row, 8 blacks in a row. Happens very often indeed. So that can be 8 losers on the bounce at evens.
Yeah.
You're talking about horses. That's at evens, even money. But when you're talking at 7 to 1, you're talking 7 times that. 7 8's 63.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have, in theory, 63 losers on the bounce. Thank God that never happens to me. But I'm simply trying to demonstrate that numbers are a weird thing, and people just don't appreciate. That's why I recommend a 2% daily variable basis staking.
Yeah. No, okay, 7 8 63, but it doesn't matter. That's by the by. I was saying, I was just, but yeah. So what I was going to say then is really, it's not a percentage as such. You have the odd losing month per year, but every other month per year, most years after the first 3 or 4, you're in front virtually every single month. And the average normally is between 500 and 700 quid, which is a lot. It's not the earth when you're putting £40 a horse on, but it's still a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, if 10 months out of every 12, you're winning that kind of money and losing sort of only 2, and you won't be losing all your money the 2 months you lose, you'll just be losing. You're getting people pretty well in front during the course of most years, aren't you? Which is why probably people are staying with you as long as they are.
Exactly, that's right.
I'll ask another question now, and I'll be honest with you, Peter. You might not want to answer this, and I don't mind if you don't, but I think people listening and the viewers listening would want me to ask. Because you're winning more than you're losing, and I've no reason to disbelieve you, and because you're winning year on year more than you're losing, I mean, I believe you more so because you said the first 2 years people may as well have not bet with you. The first 2 years were really poor. The third year wasn't great, but since then every year, which is for 12 or 13 years, you've been in front. What kind of money do you charge for people to join you?
Oh, it's 85 quid a month. I can answer that. I've got no problem with that. Some people are going to say, my God, that's an awful lot of money. Well, it is to some, it isn't to others, but it's under 3 quid a day. So,
Peter, if on the staking, if I've got the money to do £40 per horse, I'm not saying I haven't, and I'm betting every single horse every single day, and most months I'm winning between £500 and £700 with you, I don't mind giving £80 of that back out of £500-700. So I don't think that's massive amounts at all. Some people listening to this will, but there'll be many that won't, and I don't think that's that bad at all. And I like the idea of the staking plan as well. That that it's the spot, because I think on your, I think you mentioned it on your your information page, the homepage. You mentioned how you stakes. I think you said your dad taught it to you.
On my website, I'm actually thinking of putting it on the description below each day's video, but if people do click through to my website, the staking plan is on there.
Yeah, that's what I've seen it. I think it's really good. I like the idea of that. I really do. But no, I mean, I think you're up front. You're legit. You're pretty fair. There's nothing hidden there. There's no smoke and mirrors. The couple of questions I asked you this weekend that I wasn't sure you would answer correctly. I want to answer. You answered them straight away. You mentioned VAT. I've asked you just about what it costs, and maybe it's on your website. I've not seen that. I've not gone that far in. But you were happy to do it straight away, and the fact that you tell me for the first sort of 2-3 years things weren't great means you've got better and better, and things are great now. And what I will say, Peter, to be honest with you, I think you're bucking the trend, because most people I read of, I mean, like I read on, do you class yourself as a professional gambler, professional tipster, or do you not class yourself as that? It's what you're doing now, but do you not class yourself as that?
Well, I mean, technically speaking, I'm a professional tipster.
I would say you are. I would say you are.
Depends what people want to call me, really.
Well, I think. Well, let's hope they call you nice things. I think what you found with most people, if professional gamblers were, let's say gamblers or the tipsters were listening to this now, they say, well, that's not that professional. 40 quid an horse is a good few quid, but it's nothing like the hundreds of thousands we put on. But I would say professional gambler stroke tipster, probably tipster rather than gambler. It is your profession. You've done it for 13 or 14 years, and you've done pretty well at it. And I think there's nothing but to be admired with it. And as I say, I think you're doing it correctly. I think you're doing it right. But the fact, as I say, that you said at the outset the first couple of years wasn't good, that's what I'm trying to get to. I've done what I often do. I've waffled and forgotten. I read a lot from professional gamblers. I read a lot on, or I hear a lot on the Star Sports thing with Ben Keith there, and they're all saying it's a lot harder now. It's harder than it was. They're not just talking about getting on. They're talking about getting winners. It's harder getting winners. Plus, it's harder getting on. It's harder to make money. They're all saying it to a man, all of them, whoever they may be, are saying how hard it is. So I would suggest if you've only really got into this sort of 13, 14, 15 years ago, and after 3 years you're turning over a profit on a yearly basis, I would say you're bucking the trend. I would say you're doing particularly well.
Yeah, truth of the matter is I don't really follow other tipsters, so I don't know. But I did join one of the tipster platforms once, which I think they had about, 10 tipsters. I won't mention the name, but I took, I think it was a month's free trial or a month for 5 or some darn thing.
Yeah.
But what I found is that they were giving, I'll be blunt, they were giving false odds. For instance, they said, today we've got X horse, Y horse and Z horse. First one's at 5 to 1, next one's at 4 to 1, next one's at 7 to 1. Look on Odds Checker, the 6 to 1 was 5 to 1, and they were all at least a point off. Because what I did, I went on to, anyone can do this, by the way.
Yes.
Go on to Odds Checker, click on a given horse, and it will give you the odds history of that horse for the whole day from the crack of, well, I was going to say from the crack of dawn, from midnight, in fact, on that night. It'll give you the odds all day. And I was looking at them, when they said the horse was 6 to 1, it was never 6 to 1, the best was 5 to 1. So that's what hacked me off. But in general, I don't look at other tipsters. The other thing about this platform, I think that some, or at least one inside information, and I've seen that a lot on YouTube. For me, inside information is worthless for the very simple fact that a trainer may well know and does know how well his horses are doing on the gallops. What he does not know is how another trainer's horse is doing on the gallops
100%.
or in schooling
100%.
or whatever. So it's pointless to say, oh, my horse is great, she'll win today, when another trainer that doesn't know is saying, my horse is brilliant, it'll sweep the field today, and it may well do, but I just don't see the point in it. And another thing that hacks me off is, and you touched on this yourself, the multiple services, the trackside tips, the daily doubles, the special service, the trainer talk, the dark horses, and so the list goes on. How can anybody have about 25 horses a day? Don't get it.
Yeah,
I agree.
Anyway,
I
Peter, I don't know how long we've gone. Let me put my pins on. This has been a lot longer than expected. I hope people have stayed with it until the end. Good grief. We've done 55 minutes, man. 55 minutes!
Oh, my. Well, we'll better wrap it up then.
Well, look, what we'll do, we'll wrap it up. I hope people will stay with it till the end. Anybody that's listened to the end, just do, so what can I ask for? Say, I did. In the comments, say, I did. And myself and Peter will know who stayed with us for that long. Right, what I'll say, Peter, is this. I've loved having you on. It's been great. Maybe it's not gone well, folks. I mean, I don't know what you feel. I've never done this before. It's a new thing for the channel and for me. It's not something I'm going to stop doing. I'm going to carry on doing it. I've got the next one lined up. I like it. I'm going to get a lot from it, and I think it's going to go down in time well, if not initially. But I hope it goes down well. I've had Peter on. He's been a fantastic first guest. He's very brave to come first, to offer himself up. I've appreciated it. I've looked at his channel, folks, and I think this guy is straight. I can't see myself ever gunning for this guy. I do hope, Peter, you carry on doing a profit and loss. I'd rather you be doing a daily or weekly one, but I do hope you do a profit and loss. I do hope you get some extra subscribers that subscribe to your channel from watching this. And I do hope, as and when you need members to actually pay, I do hope you get some of them from watching this. Because I think you're a decent, genuine fellow from what I've seen. Now, we will...
Really nice of you to say so, Dave.
I mean that. We will have people... people will see this video that know you, that sit with you. We'll have people that's on your side, so I'd like you to share it on your side and put it on your side as well, so people can see it. I think if...
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Dave, I'll definitely put a link up. I mean,
yeah.
Interest as well.
That's fine.
Also, I'll definitely put a link on tomorrow's video.
That's fine. And what I'm saying is, I think if you were making it up and you weren't telling the truth about your success and how well you've done, and I think it's well, we'd have some of the people that pay you money coming on my site and the comments and saying that's rubbish. I never win with him. I never this. I never that. So I'm not expecting to see any of that. I'm not expecting to see any of that. And that tells me everything you're telling me is legit and the truth. And that tells me if somebody's looking at a new avenue where they'd like to pay for tips, but from somebody that is at least reasonably, and some would say very, I'd say very, rather than reasonably, successful, Peter's the chap to have a look at. He's not taking anybody on just yet. No, he's not. But there's going to be spaces, I think, further down the line. Again, I'll say it again, folks. There's nothing in this whatsoever for me. Nothing. The first time I spoke to Peter was on Saturday. I'd never met him before. The first video I seen of Peter was about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. And it was mainly because one follower had said something and then Mandy had said he was great. And I noticed she does a couple of comments in his section. So I thought, well, if she likes him, I'll probably like him. And I did. He's upfront. He's decent. He's straight. And Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure. It really, really has. It's you know, and going forward, if you want, I'm happy to keep in touch with you because, you know, I hope you do well from it, mate. I really do because I think you're doing a decent service there. You know, I think you're not after robbing anybody, you're not after ripping anybody off, and you're successful. And it's nice to speak to a success story in this day and age. Anything else you want to say, Pete?
Dave, and I wish you well with your channel. I think that your comments on many other subjects, and of course there are very many other than horse racing, are, well, a good laugh. That's why I watch it. And so, yeah, good luck with your channel.
There's nothing wrong with having a laugh. There's nothing wrong with having a laugh.
Sure.
Peter, thank you very, very much. I'll knock this off now. In fact, I'll knock it off, and then I'll